after the folks speak. We're going to keep this as very short and limited today, and then there will be more details forthcoming. Again, I wanted to just sincerely welcome you to today's press availability on the project to fight against federal overreach at federaloverreach.org. With us today, I'm going to introduce today from Minneapolis, Mary Moriarty, who unfortunately couldn't be here. Philadelphia's Larry Krasner, Austin DA Jose Garza, Fairfax DA Steve Descano, Falls Church, Virginia, Parisa, I want to make sure I say it right, Parisa Dehghani-Tafti from Portsmouth, from Falls Church, Virginia. In Norfolk, Virginia, Ramin Fatehi. I apologize. And Prima County, Arizona, Laura Conover. Again, want to just welcome everybody today, and I'm going to turn it over now to the Philadelphia District Attorney, Larry Krasner, to talk about the project and its goals.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. Are you able to hear me? We're good? Okay, wonderful. So let me just speak for a moment by way of a general sense of what's going to happen, and then I will confine my remarks, as will all of the prosecutors who are assembled here, to about 2 to 3 minutes after that. This is an announcement of the beginning of a collective effort. I am absolutely delighted to be one of this group of founding members of the Project for the Fight Against Federal Overreach. A lot more information is available at federaloverreach.org. My colleagues here are people who have all been very courageous, have fought hard for even-handed justice, have often done so in the context of making sure that law enforcement, when they commit crimes, serious crimes, are accountable, and therefore they made the cut. Simply put, this is an organization for local prosecutors who take their oath seriously, including their oath to preserve the Constitution and the laws of the United States. It is a gathering of people who take democracy seriously and are willing to do what their oath requires, to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States, and also their moral oath. There is a moral oath that prosecutors have, and that is the oath to seek justice. All of that is what we are about. I'm extremely proud to have the chance to be with these good people, many of whom I've known for years, all of whom have really been exceptional in terms of the work that they have done within their jurisdictions, and feel the same tug that I think many of us feel in America, which is a tug to make sure that our country is saved, that our rights are preserved, that lives are not lost for reasons that are simply unacceptable in a democratic system of justice. I'll say a couple words in a minute, and then I will be followed by Steve Descano. After that, Laura Conover. After that, Parisa Dehghani-Tafti. After Parisa will be Jose Garza. And then we will have Ramin Fatehi. I hope I didn't mess up your names too bad. I'm pretty good at messing up names, but I hope I didn't do that. John Creuzot is with us in spirit. He is, of course, the chief prosecutor in Dallas. Mary Moriarty, who's a little busy these days, is with us in spirit as a founding member. She's a little busy in Minneapolis today. But having said that, we are delighted to be here, and we are delighted at the opportunity to actually live up to our oath. So, simply put, we find ourselves in a moment when one of the most potent tools, one of the most effective tools to try to preserve democracy in the United States is state prosecutors. Why? Well, simply because we do have, despite the misinformation you have heard from the mouth of the vice president, we do have the ability to bring state criminal charges against federal officials, federal officers, and to prosecute those cases to conclusion. To conclusion. That prosecution may occur in state court or in federal court for some technical reasons, but regardless, it would be us. It would be local prosecutors seeing through charges from beginning to end, whether they are criminal homicide charges or they are charges having to do with illegal actions to promote a cover-up, such as obstructing the administration of justice, which is a crime. In many jurisdictions, tampering with evidence, which is a crime, perjury, false oaths, physical assault. There's any number of charges that could potentially arise in various jurisdictions where we are seeing, sadly, certain individual ICE officers and federal officers going rogue. That is in no way a criticism of the professional, proper law enforcement activity that has gone on in ICE and is to some extent going on in ICE and other federal agencies now, but we all know what time it is. We all know what this moment is, and we all know that things are happening that should not be happening, for which people must be accountable now or in the future. So I am delighted to be here with this team, and I am delighted to let people know that not only are we committed, and I'm sure there are many other prosecutors who will join us over time, but not only are we committed to living up to our oaths, to making sure that democracy is preserved, to the rule of law, not only are we committed to law and order when some federal officials whose paychecks we pay through our taxes are not, but we intend to see it through as justice requires in individual cases, now or in the future. And if we do obtain those convictions, and if there are sentences of incarceration or even of probation, the President of the United States cannot pardon them, period. That is plain. There is no question that the President is without the power to pardon people who are convicted in state court. Yes, I understand that our Vice President came up with a highly creative and completely false theory that he calls absolute immunity. Well, that is absolute nonsense. There is no such thing. There is a sliver of immunity that is not going to save people who disarm a suspect and then repeatedly shoot him in the back from facing criminal charges. There is a sliver of immunity that is not going to save people who are shooting young mothers with no criminal record and no weapon in the side or back of the head, when it's very clear the circumstances didn't require any of that, that it was not reasonable, it was not necessary to carry out their duties. Yes, I know, I'm speaking on matters as to which there is limited information, but we're not blind, and we do know the difference between what we see and what we hear. At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce Steve Descano first, and all of my colleagues who will go after that.
Thank you, Larry. Very much appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Descano, the Commonwealth's Attorney for Fairfax County, Virginia. I want you to know right off the bat, I love this country. And I love it because at its best, it strives for the highest of ideals. And as a West Point graduate, I swore to provide a lifetime of selfless service to this nation in both good times and bad times. And I think we can all agree we are in some bad times right now. We're in bad times because we have a federal government that is deploying masked agents to occupy American cities with the explicit guarantee that they have full immunity to do whatever it is that they want. The chaos you're seeing on the streets, the beatings, the abductions, the killings of everyday Americans, just like you and me, these are the natural consequences of a federal government that thinks they're above the law and the rest of us are below it. If you're not on their team, you have no rights and your life does not matter. Unfortunately for those guys, we're in the find that out of business around here. I want all those agents to hear me when I say you do not have total immunity for your actions. If you break state law, you'll have to answer to state authorities. I know because I've done it. I've done it right here from this office. And there is no federal pardon power that can help you escape answering for your crimes. Take it from me. You are not above the law. As much as I want those federal agents to hear me, though, I also want my DA colleagues around the country to hear me too. As a prosecutor, you have a duty to uphold the law. You have an obligation to protect your community and to make sure people are treated fairly. I know this is a tough duty, friends, but it is still your duty. If you turn a blind eye to this chaos, make no mistake, you are a coward and you will regret it for the rest of your life. Think of what you will tell your grandkids when they look you in the face and ask you what you did in 2026. I hope that you will have the courage to do the harder right over the easier wrong. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning. Shall we proceed?
Yes, please go ahead.
Good. Good morning. I'm so inspired by the words ahead of me, and I want to share with you something from Southern Arizona. My name is Laura Conover. I'm the Pima County Attorney. That's 1.1 million people in Tucson and much of Southern Arizona. As the county's attorney, I wear two hats, the DA and the attorney for the county. And so I already had to sue the federal administration 3 times just to get them to pay their bills to our local departments. And I had tremendous nationwide help on that. But last year, when I had to sue the federal administration to get a murder suspect back in order to hold him accountable in state court and to get justice for a 3-generation local family, I had to sue the Trump administration in federal court to get him back into state custody. And I had to do that alone with my small office against the help coming in from Maine Justice Fighting. Don't get me wrong, we won. The law is on our side. We won. But I'm looking for a fair fight. And what this group of extraordinary people is offering is a chance for the nation to support us so that when we have to go into federal court as local DAs and sue on behalf of democracy and the Constitution and to hold harm doers and wrongdoers account, it needs to be a fair fight. We need to make sure that we have all the resources available so that the law prevails, so that we have a fair fight in court because the law is on our side. This is 1.1 million people in 9,000 square miles in Arizona. We share a border with Mexico, our neighbors in Mexico. We share our land with the people of the Pasquayaqui tribe and the Tohono Nation. And we are so proud that this warm sun has made us a warm and welcoming community that has been resettling lawful refugees for decades, where they not only survive, they thrive. What that means right now is that over half of my community is living in crippling fear. Fear to go to school, fear to go to work, fear to just live. And at the same time, I am begging them to remain calm, to be smart, to go out there and protest as a community and do it peacefully and to use de-escalation even when we're faced with escalation and high risk on the other side. And while I'm begging them to be peaceful, I need them also to know that if you come into our community in Southern Arizona, I don't care what you are wearing or what agency you claim. If you break state law and you cause us harm, I will do everything in my power to bring you into court and to hold you to account. These are the promises we're having to make to our communities because the local DAs are the #1 voice being heard right now and the last line of defense against our community facing true harm. I can't thank you all enough for the organizers who've come in to make this happen and for you and your attention to this. Let's go.
Thank you, Laura Conover. Next is Parissa, Dehghani-Tafti.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am Parissa Dehghani-Tafti, the Commonwealth's Attorney for Arlington County and the City of Falls Church. Before I get started, I just want to add that Stephanie Morales is also with us in spirit. She is my colleague from Portsmouth, and that John Creuzot from Dallas has joined us and will be speaking after Ramin. If you raise your voice at me, I will erase your voice. An ICE agent said that to a citizen yesterday. Another ICE agent pepper sprayed peaceful protesters as he drove by them. ICE and Border Patrol seem to believe that their job is not to serve and protect, but to subdue and terrify. Their actions in Minnesota, Illinois, California, Arizona, Maine, and more, they are sending the message: we can take over your neighborhoods and occupy your streets whenever we want. We can stop you and demand to know where you were born whenever we want. We can arrest you just because you don't have an ID whenever we want. We can break your car window and drag you out whenever we want. We can force our way into your home and point guns at your family whenever we want. We can drive your face into the pavement and pepper spray you at point blank whenever we want. We can kill you for recording us or daring to disrespect us whenever we want. And we can do all of that without answering to anyone. We're here to tell you it doesn't work that way. It's not right. It's undemocratic. It's un-American. We've never been in a situation in the United States where a militarized federal police force enters our communities and does what it wants with complete impunity. In the America whose Constitution I've taken an oath to uphold, law enforcement answers to civilians, period. It doesn't matter whether you're local police, county sheriff, state patrol, FBI, ATF, it doesn't matter what badge you're wearing. It doesn't matter if you're making a traffic stop, arresting a robbery suspect, conducting a drug investigation, apprehending a fugitive, or even enforcing immigration laws. You serve the public, you respect constitutional rights, and you follow the law. And when you don't, we will hold you accountable, just like we hold every other law enforcement officer who breaks their oath of office. And that's what this coalition is about, working together to return to the most fundamental and foundational of American principles. All law enforcement is subject to civilian accountability. Every single law enforcement in the country, whether local, state, federal. Not a single law enforcement officer can be allowed to operate with impunity or behave as if it's above the law. As elected prosecutors, our message is simple. Any and all law enforcement agencies operating in our communities are subject to the rule of law, no matter the acronym on your jacket. And if you break the law, we have the jurisdiction, we have the authority, we have the power, and we need no one's permission to investigate, charge, and prosecute you. And we will do so because we care about our communities, we care about our country, and we care about our democracy. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Jose.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Garza, and it is my privilege to serve as the Travis County District Attorney here in Austin, Texas. And I am heartbroken for the family and friends of Alex Preddy, Renee Good, and for the entire Minneapolis community, and for all communities and people that have been harmed by federal violence over the last several months and year. The repeated acts of violence committed by federal officials across the country is unlawful. It's immoral, and it makes all of us less safe. In Travis County, we will not tolerate unlawful acts of violence or obstruction by ICE agents or any other federal officials. Federal officials who engage in unlawful acts in this county will be prosecuted and held accountable by this community. In the weeks and months ahead, I encourage all Travis County residents to remain vigilant, to report unlawful activity, and to remain peaceful. I am so proud to join together with prosecutors from around the country to fight against this federal overreach. We're going to work together to make sure that federal officers uphold the law in our states and in our cities. We know that this administration and its reign of terror will not last forever. Collectively, we have the power to end the terror that too many Americans are experiencing, and we will. Thank you so much.
And next we have Ramin, then to be followed by John Creuzot.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ramin Fatehi. I'm the Commonwealth's Attorney for the City of Norfolk, home to the largest naval base in the world, a place where the lifeblood of our economies and families is the federal government, and where as many people as anywhere in America have given their lives and their livelihoods to the service of the federal government and to the service of us. This is a national emergency that we are confronting. We have spent most of our history watching the federal government be guardians of our rights when state governments violate them. That precedent is on its head. We are now seeing that we as local officials, and especially as local prosecutors, have to be the guardians of rights and dignities that the federal government seems determined to degrade and to trample. This is an emergency. I'm proud to be standing with my brothers and sisters from around the country. those of us who understand that the words of the Constitution are not simply words on paper and words that require continual guarding. Where do we go from here? We recognize that our powers are significant but limited. We are not here to argue with the federal government over their deportation policies, no matter how immoral and counterproductive I feel, and I would say many of us feel they are. We are here to say that when you cross the line of our criminal codes, that is where we step in. That is where we hold people accountable. That is what we do, regardless of whether you are a gang member, a country club member, a local police officer, or an ICE agent. The law applies to you with equal force, and we will apply it with equal force. I would also say that all of this hits home. When people are gunned down in Minneapolis, when they are gunned down in Los Angeles, when they are beaten in Portland, that makes our jobs as prosecutors in our courts the harder. When we have to go in and tell a jury to hold somebody accountable and to say that nobody is above the law, and when people's eyes show that we are lying to them. We are doing this not just because federal law enforcement officers need to protect and serve and not commit crimes. We are doing it because every time that they violate their oaths, it makes our jobs harder. We feel these things very personally. Renee Good was taught by my wife's colleagues at Old Dominion University right here in Norfolk. We had to watch her die in Minneapolis. We don't want that to happen here. A lot of people think that prosecutors can get out and warn people not to commit crimes. Most of the time, that's not really effective. But I'd like to think that federal officers might be some of the only people who will listen to us in advance. And that when they are thinking about beating a protester, destroying evidence, shooting somebody who is unarmed, that they will have it and say, wait a minute, I'm in Tucson. Wait a minute, I am in Dallas. I am in San Antonio. I'm in Philadelphia. I'm in Norfolk. And I know that this DA is going to be watching me. And maybe, just maybe, that will save a life. And if it doesn't, then we're here and we're ready.
John Creuzot.
Thank you and good morning to everyone, and thank you for
Oh, we seem to have lost John's audio.
John, you're on mute, buddy.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Thank you, John.
Okay, sorry, everyone. I was saying thank you for allowing me to be here and to participate in this very important effort. I'm not going to repeat a lot of what my colleagues said. I had those written in my notes, those concepts written in my notes, so I'll be brief. Quite frankly, what's going on in America is wrong and violates every concept and principle of what we hold America to be dear. Democracy is at stake. Freedom of speech, freedom of protest, peaceful freedom of protest is at stake. American justice and accountability are all at stake. We're looking at videos that strongly suggest that murders were committed, and yet we have a counter narrative that these people who were peacefully there, who were otherwise moving out of the way, were shot in some form of self-defense. Never in my life, and never in my 43 years of practicing law, have I seen federal law enforcement or even local law enforcement weaponized against American citizens or otherwise peaceful individuals. So I'd like to congratulate my colleagues and offer all assistance that I can to any office around the United States. Any resource that we have, we will make available. Any time that I have, I will make available. We're in perilous times, and I'm happy that we're coming together to show unity, to educate the American people, to educate law enforcement, to let them know that this concept of absolute immunity does not exist, and that you are committing state crimes when you shoot someone in an unjustified manner, and you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And I just want to thank everybody for making their time available. I know that that is a lot of firepower, a lot of district attorneys with a lot more that couldn't be here today. I want to get immediately to the questions. And then also, if you want to write your questions in the chat or raise your hand, but I'm only looking for on this call journalists. And please write your outlet or your question in the chat as well as raising your hand. I see Anna Orson, so I'm going to call on Anna. Go ahead, Anna, and state your question.
Hi, good morning. Anna Orso with the Philadelphia Inquirer. DA Krasner, I see this coalition is soliciting contributions on its website. Where does that money go? What is it used for? And, why do prosecutors need monetary contributions to file criminal charges in their own jurisdictions?
If Larry's out of pocket, I don't mind taking this one, Scott.
Go for it. I'm sorry. I think Larry had to cut loose.
That's a great question. I'd recommend that you look at the op-ed that Steve Vladeck wrote in the New York Times on Monday. These cases are complicated. When we indict a federal officer, that federal officer has the right to litigate whether we are doing what we're supposed to do in federal court. I'm a former federal prosecutor myself, and I can tell you that this is very difficult. It is complicated. I'm going to tag in my colleague, Steve Descano, because Steve has actually done this when park police officers gunned down somebody in his jurisdiction some years ago. We expect to be tied up in knots. We expect to have to go up against the full force and resources of the federal government and of the president. And when we do that, we are going to need specialized assistance. We are going to need extra manpower. This will function as a common fund where those of us who find ourselves in the tragic but necessary position of having to indict a federal law enforcement officer will be able to bring on the firepower necessary to make sure that the federal government doesn't roll us simply through greater resources. The money doesn't go to us personally. It doesn't go to our politics. It doesn't go to our campaign. It is there just in case we have to file these charges and we have to go to federal court and fight it.
And thanks, Ramin. I will add to that what he said about the uniqueness of this is correct. When I did this a few years ago, we were immediately in federal court. And as a former federal prosecutor myself, I know how different federal court is from state court. We would be facing what we would expect to be the full resources of the federal government against us. We would want specialized help for that. Furthermore, I think what we're seeing is that this administration may be not sharing investigations and not sharing evidence with state prosecutors. I think it's important to remember that due to TUI regulations, there's no guarantee that a federal agency that does an investigation of a shooting, for example, would ever share this information with a local prosecutor looking to prosecute their person. Therefore, we would probably also need to bring on special forensic investigators that localities may not have. All of this, as Ramin said, it doesn't go to us. It goes to doing the mission, which is making sure that we are holding people accountable and that no one, regardless of who they work for, is above the law.
I'd like to add something as well, that the resources are being raised initially to convene us and for the purpose of training, brainstorming, and sharing experiences so that we can get ahead of these issues and be prepared if they arise.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is Laura in Tucson, and what I want to add is that these are highly specialized cases, and having been there myself, it's a battle of the experts. Maine Justice out of DC can just order federal agents and federal experts to go to a locality and lend all of their support, whereas a local DA has to find and then arrange and pay for use of force experts, right? It becomes a battle of the experts, and then you got to have a fair fight, right? You got to be able to match their resources. And so this is a legal fund for that, and an opportunity for us to share, what Steve has learned, what I've learned. An opportunity just last week where Mary Moriarty and AG Ellison in Minnesota asked for us to send our pleadings and litigation from our court case in federal court last year when evidence is stolen from us, when a suspect is stolen from us, and how to get it back, how to go into court and argue that we have authority to have equal access so that we can hold people to account if they break state law.
Great, thank you. And let's go to Jacob Garnsworth with Scripps Howard. And again, reminded folks that we're asking for journalists to raise their hand to show questions. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, thanks. This is Jacob with Scripps News. Appreciate you doing this. Two questions, if that's okay, really for any of the prosecutors who are here with us. First, obviously there's been a lot of interest on some of these cases in Minneapolis, given how prevalent there is video footage of the altercations, multiple angles, et cetera. I'm wondering if you can speak to the challenges of prosecuting some of these cases when there is not video footage, or at least video footage that's publicly available, and how you might be able to counter some of these messages coming from the administration as they continue to claim quote unquote absolute immunity. And then second question, we've seen a number of states pursuing state laws to try to enable more lawsuits against immigration officials. I'm wondering if any of these prosecutors have been collaborating with state leaders, legislatures, et cetera, in the crafting of these laws, and sort of where you see this effort going to change state laws to enable more of these types of lawsuits.
Okay. Do we have a DA that would like to take that? Jose, I'll pick on you.
Well, with respect to the first question, we do this work every single day. It goes without saying that not every crime committed in our jurisdictions is caught completely on videotape. But I would say just a couple of things. First of all, video cameras and video recording is more prevalent than it has ever been. Both through Ring cameras, many jurisdictions have public cameras, and then obviously every citizen with the phone, is a citizen journalist these days. But even in cases where there isn't video footage, we are quite used to relying on the testimony of witnesses, people who were victims of the encounter themselves, obviously, are some of the most powerful pieces of evidence. And as some of my colleagues have pointed out, we are quite used to relying on experts to help explain cases and the law to juries. So I think we're pretty well versed in working cases that don't have video evidence, and video evidence is increasingly common. I'm operating in the state of Texas, so that will disqualify me from conversations about our legislature taking steps to address this.
Somebody else want to take that second piece? Maybe Parissa?
Yes, we are working with our legislatures. There is a bill that is actually up in committee today in the General Assembly in Virginia that is an anti-masking bill that would really allow us to better hold law enforcement officers accountable. So we are, at least the folks in Virginia are.
Great. We'll take a next question. I see Laura and Burke with Black Virginia News. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having this. This is for Ramin Fatehi. I wonder, Ramin, how do you navigate the question of, how the deferential nature of how we deal with law enforcement, the questions of, obviously the administration has adopted the position that law enforcement can do no wrong. Obviously, the Black Lives Matter agenda was pushed back against very hard. Can you talk on some of that sort of global problem of how cops are navigated against? And also, I wanted to ask Steve Descano about some of that too, because the recent pardon of the officer by Governor Youngkin, there was a fellow that was, he was shot in an incident in Tyson's, and just the idea that we are so deferential to law enforcement, and your effort is going to get us back a little bit into that Black Lives Matter agenda. Can you speak on that? Thank you so much.
Sure, Lauren, I'd be glad to answer your questions. Oh, every one of us prosecutors on this call has been making the point from the time that we ran for office and in our time in office that law enforcement officers have dangerous jobs. They have to make split-second decisions. We get that. But the law applies to them with absolutely equal force, with the same protections and the same responsibilities and the same liabilities as a private citizen. And that part of the reason people don't trust the justice system is that they think there is a double standard. The federal government and the president want there to be a double standard. We are here to say that there isn't a double standard. The rule that I've always had over 4 years of doing these cases is if a police officer does something that is ugly or unpopular, but is legally justified, then I have an obligation to say that person did what they had to do and they did not commit a crime. And I have done that. But we are also here to say if that officer crosses the line into criminal territory, they don't get special treatment. They don't get home cooking. I can't help the fact that people politicize that message. This is a human rights and American Constitution message. And my hope is that people see that we are all held to equal account. Whether it was local police officers in Minneapolis in 2020, or it's federal law enforcement officers and ICE and the Border Patrol in 2026, that the standard is the same and should be the same.
Great. Let me kick it over to Mir Rindy with WHYY.
Hold on, Scott. We got Steve. Steve had a question directed at him as well.
I apologize, Steve.
No, Scott, no worries. And to answer your question, look, prosecuting police officers is a thing I've done many times, but also clearing police officers for an incident is something I've done as well. That's what makes this job difficult, is that there are a lot of passions inflamed on both sides of these things, and it's our job to follow the law. Our job as the prosecutor is to do justice. And that is why what we are fighting against here is so important. You mentioned the pardon that our governor gave a law enforcement officer that my office convicted for a felony not long ago. Anytime someone politicizes the justice system, whether it is Governor Youngkin giving what I think is an unjust pardon, or the president and his allies coming out telling agents they have full immunity and trying to create a two-tiered system of justice, that does our law a disservice. What we are trying to do here is we're trying to stand up for the rule of law, make sure that over time people really start to believe again the truth, which is that no one is above the law. And it's through efforts like this, day in, day out, that we have to rebuild that trust. Because I can tell you, the politicization of this coming from our federal government, coming mainly from the Republican Party, is making our jobs much, much more difficult, and it's making our communities less safe.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Again, we'll go over to Mir Rindy with WHYY.
Yeah, hi. Thanks. I have a question for all of the prosecutors or whoever wants to answer. Have there been any recent examples in the last several years of local prosecutors, state or county prosecutors, charging specifically a federal law enforcement officer for actions committed during performance of their job, as opposed to, something they did off duty or anything like that?
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, there are. I did it 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I've been through this rodeo, and I can tell you, when I did it, I started that prosecution under the first Trump administration, and just like they are now, they were trying to stonewall then. It is a very difficult process, as prosecuting any law enforcement officer is, but it is compounded in difficulty when you are trying to get the federal government to help you to share information when they don't want to. The fact of the matter is, these things are possible, though they are difficult. But at the end of the day, what's most important is taking that bite when the law dictates that you do it, showing your community that you are going to stand up and treat people fairly and equally under the law, regardless of who they work for and what job they were doing. That is the most important thing. And I think that is the ethos of what we're trying to bring to this incredibly important moment in our country's history.
And just to follow, can you just give me a reference, a name or something, so I can look that case
Sure.
up?
It was the victim's name was Bijan Gazar, and it was a Park Police shooting, Commonwealth v. Amaya, Commonwealth v. Vineyard.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Great. If we could go to, I'm sorry, Kristen Johnson had her hand raised with KYW.
Hi there. Yeah, Kristen Johansson, KYW in
Johansson, I
Philadelphia.
apologize.
No, it's okay. Kind of backtracking off of that question as well. The how does a prosecutor, and I don't know if Steve would want to answer this because he just spoke on a specific Virginia case that he prosecuted against a federal agent, but how do you get any sort of federal agency, maybe specifically under this administration, to hand over any sort of evidence to you or to cooperate in any manner? We had a case here in Philadelphia where there was an FBI agent who killed, or I think it was a few FBI agents killed a man here in Philadelphia a few years ago, Cooks Weeks, and no one was prosecuted here in Philadelphia for that. So, and I can't, I know DA Krasner has isn't on this anymore, but or that I see. But I guess I'm just, how do you get them to cooperate in any sort of way, even show up for court? I imagine that would be a hurdle as well.
I know.
Okay, go ahead, Steve. And then I saw John was also nodding, so I'll flip it over to John after you, Steve.
So I don't want to dominate the conversation, but she had mentioned me, and I'll just very briefly. It's incredibly difficult. As a matter of fact, from when we did our case, I think we started from the premise that we were not going to get any federal help. And we really did not. I think what you were trying to do is, thank goodness for the prevalence of video. You were trying to gather your own witnesses. Essentially, you were doing your own investigation. You have to go into this with the idea that you are not going to get help from the federal government, from this federal government, and that you are going to have to work with your local law enforcement, state law enforcement, anybody else that you can bring in to essentially redouble those efforts and do your own investigation, because you cannot have confidence that you will get help or any information from this administration.
Great. Anything else you want to add, John?
Well, I think it's always difficult, as Steve said. Even when they are the witness for you, they can often dodge subpoenas, file motions to quash subpoenas. Even local police, when they don't want to cooperate on certain investigations, will do so. So certainly the federal government, being a separate branch of government, can do so and often does so. We do expect it to be difficult, and that's exactly why we're convening with one another, so that we can develop best practices and share what we know. We can, as Jose said, the prevalence of video, as you know, from all of these most recent shootings, really make a case. There's data in cars, there's data in phones, there's all kinds of data that the average person doesn't know about that we have through our investigative tools that we can access. And we can tell a lot of the story. We may not be able to tell all of it, but we can tell a lot of it. And we may be able to tell enough to get to a point of whether there was a crime committed, if so, whether we're going to proceed forward with it. So it's difficult, but doable.
Great. I'm going to go to Miguel Martinez-Alley with NBC 10 Telemundo.
Hey everybody, Miguel here from Philly. All right, so the question is around, it's two questions. One is, how will you decide what to prosecute in terms of, there's so much happening right now, so it could, I guess, vary from breaking something like going in without a warrant to obviously a shooting death. It just, are you going after all of them? Are you kind of going based on the severity of the crime that was committed is one question. Anyone can answer that. The second one is, I'm wondering if anyone speaks Spanish and would be able to say in Spanish how the coalition building, doing this as a group, is helping with resources, is helping kind of take on the federal government.
All right, Laura, you want to answer first? And then I don't want to put anybody on the spot on the Spanish, but let's get Laura first, and then we'll see if anybody's got Spanish for you.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much and good morning. Thank you, Miguel, for being here and representing a bilingual media. What I would say is that, returning to a point that I think Ms. Johansson just made earlier, my ability last year to sit down with DA Krasner and talk about the case you mentioned, as I was trying to deal with very similar facts and circumstances and similar research in case law, was extraordinarily helpful. And that's why bringing these people together is so critical to share this information. Y aquí en Tucson es muy temprano en la mañana, pero quiero decir que la oportunidad de reunir juntos y compartir la información es crítica en estos tiempos para preparar un gran caso en contra de un agente federal que tiene todo el apoyo de DC, del presidente. Es un gran montón para caminar y juntos podemos hacerlo mejor. And then Miguel, did you have another question? The sort of the second part of the question? Oh, he might be muted now. Sorry, Miguel. But if there's
I was,
there he
yes.
is. There we go.
Sorry, I was muted. But yeah. So the first part of the question was, how will you decide which cases to go after? It just feels like there's so many things that could happen. So many. So is it going to be based on like what law was broken, or are you going to try to get them all?
All right, so I think that's such a great question because it goes to why a legal fund is a good idea if we are suddenly faced as local DAs, you know, many of us in very humble economies, right? Very humble local economies with a budget that, right, that's contracted. And then suddenly, you know, and that budget's supposed to cover 12,000 incoming felonies a year. And suddenly you have a case threatening to kind of blow up your entire budget, right? What I want to say is that the Attorney General here in Arizona, Chris Mays, has already created a portal for people to upload photos and videos. My website now links to that. And I would say that, like any case, strength of evidence, right? That when we're weighing our ability to prosecute a case, strength of evidence, be it witness, be it tech evidence off of phones, is a huge factor. And also what we call the ongoing threat of harm, like the harm that the community suffered, that a particular victim suffered, or many victims, or a whole neighborhood. That's a factor among 28 factors, I'll tell you. But otra vez en español, atento de decir que bajo la volumen de tantos casos, estamos enfocando en la evidencia, si es fuerte o no, si tenemos evidencias suficiente para entrar en la corte y tratar de luchar para la justicia. También el daño de una víctima, muchísimas víctimas, todo un grupo, y evaluar lo que tenemos para proceder. Gracias otra vez, Miguel.
Yeah, you're on me, buddy.
Amazing. That was a great transition that nobody heard. Is Nicholas Benton from Falls Church News Press had a question as well? I think Nicholas may have dropped. If anybody else has any additional questions, if we want to drop them in the chat. If not,
Okay.
you can email. Oh, there you are, Nicholas.
Yeah,
Go for
hi.
it.
Sorry. Well, my concern, I note, of course, of the 9 original members of this group, 4 are from Virginia. And I just wonder if there's a concern on their part that with the elevation of a new Democratic leadership in the state of Virginia, that the state is somehow or other more vulnerable to being targeted by the ICE forces.
Yes.
Carissa.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
That's it?
And I
Okay.
don't mind being the lawyer and giving you the longer answer, Nicholas. Look, everybody's in the chute. Everybody's in the chute. We don't know where Trump's obsessions are going to send him next. We don't know who he's going to pick. But given that we just went from a Republican to a Democratic governor, I think it's not unreasonable to think that Virginia's somewhere on the radar. But this is what it means to stand up to power and to stand up to bullies. So law firms folded last year until some law firms stood up and went to court, and then some law firms found a backbone. Colleges engaged in incredible amounts of cowardice until Harvard stood up. Harvard stood up, and other colleges started to stand up too. So just because we might be worried that the bully is going to come after us doesn't mean that we don't have a moral obligation to stand up and protect our oaths. So whoever is going to come, whether it's sooner, whether it's later. I'd rather that they know that they're coming at a hard target than at a soft one.
Thank you.
Great. Well, again, I'd like to just remind everybody to check out the website, federaloverreach.org. And I want to thank the district attorneys, who I know are extremely busy, for taking the time today, and also for taking the courage to stand up and join forces together. And more to be seen in the days ahead. If any of the other district attorneys would like to say any additional final remarks or closing words, I'll leave it to them to wrap this up. All right. Well, on that note, be on the lookout for more information from federaloverreach.org, and feel free to email any additional questions to press@federaloverreach.org. Thank you all for being with us today.